Sonic Riders, the most prestigious set of spin-offs in the franchise. A series with so much potential that would end up dead at the hands of its last iteration. But today, we are not going to discuss how good the games are. Today, I'll show you the cut content, the betas, the demos, the secrets and the things that you probably didn't know about the games. Most of the stuff covered is already documented on the Sonic Wiki, Sonic Retro, the Cutting Room Floor and Hidden Palace, so this video is for those of you who are too lazy to do the research yourselves. I also recommend checking out Cybershell's bonus videos on Sonic 2 and Sonic 3, as that's where I got the video and title idea from. This video will have a slightly different format from the other bonus videos I have made in the past, so I'll give you a quick introduction. In these types of videos, I always like to start by covering the cut content first, and then analyze the betas, prototypes, trailers and demos of the games, and then end with a little bit of trivia, showing you some obscure facts that you might have not known about the games. But since I'm covering 3 different games in this video, I'll have to cover them by order of release. So I'll cover Sonic Riders' content first, and then Zero Gravity, and lastly Free Riders. In the trivia it will probably all get mixed up, so yeah, don't worry about that. So let's start by covering Sonic Riders' cut content. A test level was found in the GameCube version of the game. It is a long oval track with no interactable objects, aside from the lap finish line, and some missing textures that were replaced with custom textures by modders, with invisible walls preventing you from falling off the track. The Chao that runs the shop has its lower body fully modeled, but this can't be seen normally due to the fixed camera showing you the front only. Sonic Riders was first developed for the PS2, Xbox and GameCube. The Windows version is actually a port of the Xbox version, and, as with other Windows ports of Sonic games, it's a pretty poor port. Some of these bugs are only in the Windows version, while other bugs originate from the Xbox. Many copies of the Xbox version have problems displaying the CG cutscenes, where they play but appear very choppy. The cause of the glitch is unknown and varies on how you play it, as some systems, as well as the Xbox 360, play the CG cutscenes just fine. In the Windows version, every character in the non-CG cutscenes that has eyes has their eye pupils fixed to a forward-looking position and not moving around. This is not seen in any other version of the game. In the last non-CG cutscene in the Babylon story mode, some characters, mostly Sonic, Tails and Knuckles, appear to have their mouth misplaced on their face. This bug is also present in the GameCube and Xbox versions. And that's about it for the cut content in Sonic Riders. Now let's go over Zero Gravity's cut content. Assets for an early title screen can be found in an archive both on the PS2 and the Wii. The logo looks terrible, so I'm glad it was changed. Early renders for the character select screen could also be found. None of them have shadows or outlines, and some poses and the lighting on the characters look different. Early graphics for the extreme gears are present in the files. Though most of them are just placeholders, the early graphics have 82 extreme gears while the final game has 81. Also present are the early renders of the level select icons. Some have different lighting, different camera angles and are generally unfinished overall. Interestingly, Meteor Tech was originally referred to as Meteotech in the English version. Early graphics for the story mode could be found. The early graphics almost look like they were used from the in-game models. They were later changed to the images from the box art. Left over from Sonic Riders is a title card for Metal City. It's rumored that this level was transferred to Zero Gravity as a test, as no other files seem to be present. At least 2 extreme gears have different names according to an early graphic. These are the GP Accumulator and the Skill Booster, that would have been called Ring Linker and Influential respectively. For whatever reason, Rouge the Bat and Cream the Rabbit were misspelled on an early version of this texture. They are listed as Roug the Bat and Cree the Rabbit. Also, some icons look different. In the early texture they seem to be more detailed, however darker. In the final, the textures were made simpler and lighter. The character icons also look different, with different renders and lighting.
Ready, go!
And that's about it for the cut content in Zero Gravity. Now let's take a look at free riders. Unfortunately, almost no cut content is documented about free riders. The only things I could find about it are an early version of the Crush 40 free theme, similar to the Sonic Heroes prototype song. And a lot of audios that go unused are present in the game files, but most of them don't really hint at anything interesting. And that's about it for the cut content. Sadly, there wasn't much to cover of it. Anyways, let's get into the betas and trailers, since we have a lot more to cover here. Starting by Sonic Riders. Riders has 4 dumped prototypes to date. These include the NPDP prototype, the December 8, 2005 prototype, and the trial version. All of them seem to be very close to, if not final, with very small differences, if any at all, present. The only noticeable differences in these prototypes are present in the trial version, where the title screen looks different and a tutorial for how to play the game is present before entering a race, of which only Metal City is present. Although there is one prototype restored by a user called Sewer56, and that is the 7th of October 2005 prototype. It's an incomplete debug build restored to working order and dev functionality, and has a ton of differences from the final. The sparkle effect while boosting that can be seen in some early game footage is present in this build. There is no lap counter in the 2 and 4 player HUD. Failing a trick causes the player to receive no air at all, as opposed to the small amount that you would receive in the final. Players bump off of the Babylon Guardian instead of going through it, making a bonk instead of an electricity effect. The leaf blower behaves slightly differently, making the player seemingly land faster and with less distance. This can result in a death in Egg Factory if the player does a manual jump into the start of the fan. In Sega Carnival, you can gain a lot of speed once land in the Monkey Ball section has been tilted past a certain point. In Sega Illusion, the QTE launches the player at a lower altitude, although faster than the final. In Skyroad, the cannon doesn't work. All of the main menu gameplay FMVs are different and belong to an earlier version of the game. Most of the stage icons and banners are different, with most using more isometric perspectives. The characters stop doing their idle animation during the fade out after pressing start in the character/gear select. There are also more bugs in this version than the final, which is to be expected given the state of this build. Now let's take a look at the debug functions. In the main menu, you can activate a text debug that lets you see all of the text present within the game, along with repositioning it and changing the text font. When you get to arrays, you can open the main debug menu of the build, presenting you with several options. The first is To System, which just shows you what objects are currently loaded. To Player allows you to change several flags related to the player. You can change the character's level, assign the character's control to a bot or to a player in real time, change the amount of rings that they have, and also check some attributes about the character, like their coordinates for example. To Game simply allows you to change how many laps are in the race, as well as display some information about the stage. To Tools present you with 4 different sub-menus: Hyperset Editor, Object Portal Editor, Map Portal Editor, and Map Portal Number 2 Editor. Hyperset Editor locks the camera and allows you to change the position, rotation, and scale of all the objects currently loaded in a stage, as well as adding some. Map Portal Editor and Map Portal Number 2 Editor seem to let you change the color palette of certain areas of the map, although you can't save your changes, so you can only preview them in a locked camera. Object Portal Editor seems to serve the exact same purpose. To Turbulence allows you to change several flags related to the turbulence, such as enabling or disabling it, changing its textures, drawing its collisions, the speed you get while riding turbulence, and much more. To Other seems to be related to some kind of blur setting. Disabling blur literally just disables the blur effect when you boost. The other options don't seem to do anything, which is weird. And lastly, For Debugger allows you to change the amount of rings that you have and lets you frame stop the game, that being literally stopping the game at the current frame. It also provides some information about the game, such as the platform you're playing in, the version, the language you're using, and what mode you're playing. There is also a free camera that lets you fly around as you wish. Riders also has 2 trailers that have some interesting oddities to cover. The first is the TGS 2005 trailer. As it suggests, it was shown during the Tokyo Game Show in 2005. The gameplay seems to be weirdly similar to the final, with very small if any differences at all, although the lighting seems a little bit different and some objects don't seem to be as transparent. Anyways, the most noticeable difference here is this weird-ass jet animation where he says,
You can't catch up with him! Get out of my way!
It's clearly made in a different software and by a different team from the ones that were used to make the CGI in the final game. Also present in the same style is a cutscene with Sonic where he rides towards the camera, also looking like shit. You can even see him pop up in the distance, and people thought Frontiers was the first game where that happened. The second trailer is the 2006 Super trailer. Again, most of it looks exactly like the final, except for the parts that don't. For starters, Green Cave looks darker than it does in the final. One of the clips in the trailer even shows Tails in it, but everything looks black. And the shit Sonic animation is still present in the end of the trailer. And that's about it for Riders. Now let's analyze the trailers for Zero Gravity, since it doesn't have any prototypes or betas dumped or documented to cover, although there exist screenshots of a disc containing a beta version of it, although there is no real proof of it really existing. So, editor Cifesk here. I asked about this beta on a Riders modding Discord, and some people told me that there are actually 3 betas for Zero Gravity, but the projects for data mining and restoring them have been abandoned for a long time, and they can't really help with it since they mod the Wii version and the betas are for the PS2. So yeah, no Zero Gravity prototypes, at least for now. If they ever come out, I may do a video for them in the future, but just not now. Zero Gravity has a multitude of trailers, 5 of them to be specific. If any differences are present, I wasn't able to identify any, although I'll be the first to admit that I'm not the biggest Zero Gravity enthusiast out there, so yeah, I'm not very familiar with it. The same goes for Free Riders. All the trailers seem to be identical to the final, although I'll once again admit that I've never played it in my life, so I can't really judge that. For what it's worth, let's take a look at some concept art, starting once again with Riders. Initial concept art for the character designs would initially show them wearing some kind of racing suits, until it was changed to something that resembles more what is seen in the final. Jet also went through several stages of concepts until it reached a design that more closely resembles the final design. Also available are some concepts for what seem to be CGI versions of Metal City and Babylon Garden. Interestingly, there exists an artwork that would have been used for the GBA version of Sonic Riders. Yes, a GBA version for Sonic Riders was supposed to exist, although it was ultimately scrapped. An advertisement from TGS 2005 shows, first of all, artwork that was only used for this advertisement, along with some game screenshots, and one of them features a difference from the final, specifically the text indicating which trick you landed. The concept for Zero Gravity features stage concepts, in which a concept art of Tempest Waterway is available. This artwork is shown in the daytime, while the final course takes place in the darkness. The concept for the large tower in Megalo Station looks very colorful, contrasting with the dull colors it received in the final. Aquatic Capital would be, literally, a capital, featuring a city and everything. There are also some cool development images of the cutscenes from the game. And to finish it off, sadly, there is no concept art of Free Riders available. And that's about it for the betas and trailers. Now let's get into the trivia. Free Riders is the first North American game to use the new voice cast, beating Sonic Colors by 11 days. Also, the first Riders had Mike Pollock voice Eggman during the cutscenes and Dean Bristow voice him as a playable character, through voice clips from Sonic Adventure 2. As I've referenced before, a Game Boy Advance version of Sonic Riders was in development by Backbone Entertainment, but it was cancelled due to a tight schedule. Despite this, Sega liked the company and worked with them again for the Sonic Rival series. The GBA version was initially pitched to Sega as Sonic Extreme, similar to the cancelled Sonic the Hedgehog Extreme, which was a skateboarding game. During development, Nintendo Power announced II as a playable character in Riders. Nintendo Power also claimed that Mario would be a GameCube exclusive character, which was later proven false. In one of the Babylon story cutscenes, when Jet opens a door with his control box, the control box disappears but is then in his hands again in the next frame. In Rouge's official art for Riders, her eyelids are blue, but in gameplay, on the tailing map at the bottom of the screen has pink eyelids. In the opening cinematic of Riders, while the members of Team Sonic and the Babylon Rogues are passing through a wall of graffiti paintings, if one looks very closely, it features the painting taken from the cover art of Limp Bizkit's second studio album Significant Other. The PC version's instruction manual features an advert for Sonic 06 that states that it would have been released on the Xbox 360 and PC, instead of the Xbox 360 and the PS3. This game, while technically developed by Sonic Team, actually comes from the part of Sonic Team that used to be United Game Artists, who developed Space Channel 5. E10000R is said to be made using the engine parts of Metal Sonic, according to the Japanese Sonic Riders website. When starting a race in Metal City, an overview of the track is shown. During the second shot, a billboard is visible in the top right, showing a picture of Sonic running from a whale in Sonic Adventure, and next to that is a picture of Sonic's artwork from Sonic Heroes. Speed, located in the bottom right corner, cannot actually refer to miles per hour, otherwise this would mean that Eggman can run backwards at 20 miles per hour and forward at 150 miles per hour, and we all know that he can't. The actual measure may possibly be meters per hour. During cutscenes, Amy is wearing her normal dress, but during the races, she wears her racing outfit from the previous game. However, when playing as Amy in the story mode, she is wearing her normal dress again. The Wii and PS2 versions have their share of graphical differences. The Wii version uses higher quality textures in certain areas compared to the PS2, such as having more realistic looking water with reflections in aquatic capital. During the ending of the first third of Team Dark's story in Free Riders, Chao says,
"Is it the calm before the storm? I'll have all the details, assuming that robot doesn't get any more funny ideas."
However, in the subtitle during the last 7 words, it reads, "Assuming that robot doesn't get any more ideas." In the final story, after Sonic beats Metal Sonic, Wave mentions that the lack of treasure and money will ruin their reputation as rogues, but the subtitle said rouges instead of rogues. And that's all I have for this episode. Sadly, the Rider series doesn't have that much stuff documented of note to cover, but it was still fun discovering stuff about some of the Sonic games with some of the most obscure development cycles. I have made videos like this one for Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic Heroes, Sonic 06, Sonic Unleashed, Sonic Generations and Sonic Forces, so I recommend checking them out if you want. I also have a Twitter if you want to follow me there, and I would really appreciate if you subscribe as it helps me out a ton. If you have any ideas of a Sonic game that I should cover next, feel free to leave it in the comments down below.